So this is sort of old news. Probably watched this a few years ago, circulated widely in the internet a few years ago. It's a viral video footage taken from the Mile 5 Dog Sanctuary area from Churchill, Manitoba. Video of polar bears and huskies playing together like playmates. Have you watched this viral video? You haven't? None of you? Wow, I should have actually so. Well, you could actually, you go to YouTube, you probably be able to watch that. It's YouTube. We'll come back to it later, and I'll show you that video. It's about, it's in a Mile 5 Dog Sanctuary, and the video footage went viral over the internet and also on the social media. There are two animals. There are polar bears, like over 1,000-pound, huge, giant polar bear, and playing with under 100-pound husky and Eskimo dog. So like two natural enemies playing together, cuddling and petting each other together. So this image has actually captured millions of people's fascination. You haven't watched this, so I can't really verify that for you. But and the accompanying video narration goes like this. It goes like this. Animals who had once been proud and vicious had become delicate, drowning victims, lonely animals, who now just might need a companionship of friendly husky, who might come to a backyard looking for a hug. I mean, what a delightful video. I really wish that you could watch that. It's images of polar bear and husky playing together. It's kind of similar to the images described in today's text from the book of Isaiah, when the prophet proclaimed God's promise of future kingdom. God is about to create a new heavens and a new earth, and former things will come to pass, will not even be remembered, it says. God is creating a new world where wolves and the lambs will stand side by side and feed together, where lions and cows will share the same pasture and will feed together, where polar bears and huskies will play together and live in harmony. I mean, can you imagine that? Can you imagine that? Well, the reality is that just a few hours after the viral video footage was released, the very same polar bear, the cuddly and gentle polar bear, killed and ate another dog alive. So after that, a conservation officer had to be called to monitor the situation from escalating. So much for a perfect and peaceful image. You see, if something in nature seems too good to be true, it probably is, because life in the wild is brutal, relentless, and it's the way it is in the nature, isn't it? The polar bears and huskies are natural enemies. Polar bears will kill and eat huskies. It is law in the nature. The wolves must hunt and kill to survive. The lambs will be hunted and be killed by wolves. But the lambs will not be wiped away. The wolves will only hunt enough to survive in the nature. So there will always be a few lambs who will survive to give birth to the next generation. So the cycle continues. That's the way of nature, and how the wolves and the lambs, the polar bears and huskies, the predators and the prey and the nature work. There is no right or wrong in the struggle in the wild kingdom. Of course, the text for today is a metaphorical in nature. Isn't it? It's how God would establish and restore our human kingdom at the end. The world free of war, violence, and conflicts, and free of sickness and poverty and homelessness, free of fear, hate, and lies, free of depression, despair, and loneliness, free of death and goodbyes, a peaceful kingdom, where wolves and lambs of human kingdom would play together, a peaceful kingdom. And can you imagine that? We all want that, isn't it? just read, and just read at this God's dream, Desmond Tutu. Can you imagine? Can you dream that word? But in our struggle to advance, we have seen our human kingdom degenerated into this savage cycle of hunter and hunted, a struggle between the predators and the prey, the bullies and the victims in our world. But unlike the animal kingdom, however, the human kingdom will not sustain or succeed for too long in this relationship. We will all lose at the end. We'll all pay dearly. And we have been paying dearly, isn't it? So we need to reimagine. We're called to imagine our future world and to live out an imagination of here and now, where the wolves and the lambs of our world will play together as playmates, not as predators and preys. Imagine and live out that world free of war, where everyone would live a life in love and peace. Ooh. Imagine. Who sang that song? John Lennon, right? Living life in peace. You may say I'm a dreamer. I'm not the only one. We hope someday you'll join us and the world be as one. So I'd like us to imagine this morning a little bit of imagination. Not what John Lennon just imagined, but what God has promised for us at the end, where all wolves and lambs of this world would come together and play together as playmates. That our world will be a playground, not a battleground, where we will all be playmates, not the enemies. So we need to put some imagination. Holy imagination. It's a holy imagination. So I'm kind of talking about having a long daydream. Long daydream. Now, how many of you do a daydream? Oh, just a few of you. Some of you might think that having a daydream is just like waste of time. Like what some parents do and tend to tell their kids, like, Richard, stop daydreaming, get off from the couch and go outside, right? But having a daydream is not all that bad. Many great inventions and arts emerged out of long daydreaming. The great inventors and artists were nothing more than just daydreamers. The difference between them and us, because we all daydream as well, is that they were able to put their dreams into canvas, into songs, and into actions more skillfully and wonderfully and effectively than most of us. Before any new and great inventions or creations were formed into reality, there was a long creative imagination, daydreaming taking place first. Before God had an idea of creating the universe and uttered the word, "Let there be light," God sat down in his couch and had that long daydream. And of course, mother came along and said, "What are you doing sitting there doing nothing?" So God said, "I'm having a daydream." And the mother said, "Why don't you go out and mow the lawn or something? Be useful. Don't just sit there doing nothing." And tell your mothers just don't understand. Sorry, I just digress myself here. So God had a long daydream, divine imagination, daydream, and then voila, bingo, there was light. And then all those gray stuffs we see every day kind of emerge, like seagulls in the sky, and sunset, and sailboats, and salmons, and Starbucks, and sweet potatoes, all that stuff. And then bingo, the human beings were created. We are the masterpiece of God's divine imagination. So God said to Isaiah, I just had a daydream. And I want you to tell it to my people. I'm about to bring a new heavens and a new earth. I'm imagining the world free of war. And you know what that means, Isaiah. When I imagine, it comes true. So you better imagine what I imagine. And it will come to pass. So we need to do some holy imagination. And put that imagination into action, here and now. So how do you have a holy imagination? Well, first, having a holy imagination is having a God-sized imagination. God-sized dream. Don't just have a daydream, have a God-sized dream. And I don't mean in terms of size as in having a big size dream. I think it's not always good or better, right? I'm talking about God-sized dream, dreaming the word from God's perspective. For example, dreaming of building a community without loneliness is a God-sized dream. That's born out of a holy imagination. In other words, the holy imagination requires and is rooted in divine compassion. God's compassion for God's creation. It's not about us, but about our neighbors, about the word God so loved. Divine imagination is having a divine compassion. So we need to put on divine compassion. And putting on a divine compassion is more than having a sympathy. I know a lot of us are very sympathetic people. I mean, what is sympathy? Well, when your neighbor is in pain and suffering, you feel sorry for your neighbor, right? So you want to do something about your neighbors, right? That's sympathy. But sympathy alone is not enough. See, I come across a poor homeless person begging on the street all the time where I live in downtown. At first, I felt sorry that he's begging in cold weather. So I gave him toonie. And I felt better about myself. Felt that I had done something to relieve his suffering. And then the next day I see him again in the same place begging again. So I felt less sorry the next day. But I gave him loonie anyway. And the next day I see him begging again. And the next day, same thing, and I felt annoyed. And thinking to myself, why doesn't he get a job? Why don't city bylaw officers come and apprehend this guy? Such an eyesore. So now his existence doesn't even register into my brain anymore. Doesn't move me anymore. Doesn't move my compassion anymore. And I tell myself, I don't want to give him any more. I don't want to empower his dependency on me. See, not that I have given him more than toonies. But that's how my logic works. Let me tell you, sympathy alone doesn't solve anything in long term. Most charitable organizations and non-profit organizations try to appeal to our sympathy. For example, SPCA. If we look at the SPCA typical appeal to people to adopt stray dogs and cats, right? They put those sad faces of cats and dogs on the screen, especially during Christmas season, right? When people tend to be more generous. So some sympathetic viewers rush into adopting a stray 7-year-old husky from SPCA, and then after Christmas, they find themselves just couldn't handle him anymore. So they bring him back to the shelter. Let me tell you, folks, sympathy alone is not enough. Compassion, divine compassion, is much more than having a sympathy. And compassion is more than empathy. What is empathy? Well, it's more than feeling others' pain and suffering. It simply means putting yourself in somebody else's situation, right? Sort of walking a mile wearing someone else's shoes, putting ourselves in somebody else's pain and suffering. And that's good. So you go to a local soup kitchen to help out, right? To volunteer, putting yourself in their situation. or go to a short-term mission field to, let's say, South America, or volunteer at the mission organizations like First United Church. You try to listen and experience from their perspective, those who are in suffering. And it requires a great deal of sacrifice and faith to put you in other situations, which is very hard. But as good as it is, empathy alone is not enough. Because we rarely stay in other situations, others' place for too long, forever. Eventually, we come back to the warmth of our house, surrounded by our loved ones, and good food, and good friends, and good companies, away from our mission field, from a distance. Empathy is great, but it's not enough. Compassion. Divine compassion is more than empathy. Divine compassion, God's compassion goes like this. God so loved the world, God sent God's one and only Son, Jesus. And whoever believes in him will be saved. Divine compassion means God becoming one of us. In human flesh, to live like us, to love us, to feel and experience our pain and suffering and hunger and loneliness, to take on the wrongs of this world. The Lamb of God who takes away the sins of this world. He offered his life at the end to show, to love, to redeem us. That's what basically divine compassion is. More than feel sorry or putting us in others' place, but fully experiencing the depth of our pain and sorrow, and to take on the wrongs of all others and offer yourself totally and completely. There's no greater love than this. That you lay down your life for your friends, that a divine friend offered completely and totally. That's divine compassion. When that happens, the love is so awesome that it provokes, that it kind of stirs up something deep within us. A sort of kind of awakening us from a long slumber. You see that when God created us, God breathed in God's spirit, and God's spark within each one of us. The primordial, ancient, divine spirit and spark within us is kind of reignited, kind of reawakened, and we can't help but realize who we truly are, God's beloved. That's what divine compassion does. Reawakens us to a new realization that we are God's beloved, and begin to view others as brothers and sisters and God's beloved. No more division between us. We begin to see others through God's eyes. Anybody seen the movie The Life of Gandhi? Mahatma Gandhi? It was back in, when did he come out? Back in the 90s, or sometime. The movie Gandhi contains a scene in which Gandhi tries to explain his philosophy of nonviolent movement to the Presbyterian missionary Charles Andrews. Walking together in a South African city, the two suddenly find their way blocked by young thugs. So the Reverend Andrews takes one look at the menacing gangsters and decides to run for it, run away from it. And Gandhi stops him. Doesn't the New Testament say if an enemy strikes you on the right cheek, you should offer him the left? And Andrews mumbled that he thought the phrase that word was used metaphorically. I'm not so sure. Gandhi replies, I suspect he meant you must show courage. Be willing to take a blow, several blows, to show that you will not strike back, nor will you be turned aside. And when you do that, it calls on something in human nature. Something that makes his hatred decrease and his respect increase. I think Christ grasped that, and I have seen it work. Divine compassion requires us to put on courage. The courage to see others from God's perspective, to see beyond the surface and into the core of a human being, to see the image of God, the beloved within each one of us. And a courage to act and relate with others on that belief. When we can do that, we are ready to imagine and begin to build a world where both the wolf and the lamb of this world would come together and live as friends. To build a playground where all children of God would be welcome to play together as